Welcome to the Verified Metrics, your source for understanding the global economy.
Let's talk about something you use every single day, even if you never physically touch it, the US dollar. You know, its future is a huge topic of debate in the highest circles of power, and honestly, the outcome is going to affect every single one of us. So, what's really going on? Let's break it all down.
So here it is, the billion-dollar question, or maybe the trillion-dollar question, right? Is the world really moving away from the US dollar? We keep hearing this phrase, de-dollarization, thrown around. But what does it actually mean? And are we on the verge of some kind of massive financial earthquake?
And hey, if you think this is just some abstract topic for bankers and economists, think again. The answer to this question has a direct line to the price of your groceries, how much that vacation you're dreaming about will cost, and even the price of the phone you might be holding right now. This isn't abstract. This is real life.
Okay, so to really get a handle on where we might be going, we've got to look back at how we got here in the first place. How on earth did one country's currency become the default language of money for the entire planet? Well, the story starts in the ashes of World War II.
It all kicked off in 1944 at a conference called Bretton Woods. With most of the world's economies in ruins, global leaders decided to peg their currencies to the US dollar, which in turn was backed by solid gold. It made sense. The US had the strongest economy and held most of the world's gold. But here's the wild part. In 1971, the US severed the dollar's link to gold. You'd think it would have stumbled, right? Nope. It stayed strong, because by then, the world's trust had literally shifted from a shiny metal to something less tangible, faith in the stability of the US economy itself.
All right, so fast forward to today. That long-held, unquestioned dominance is now facing some serious questions. A growing number of countries are actively looking for ways to rely less on the dollar. So let's get into the why.
First things first, let's get that definition straight. De-dollarization does not mean the dollar is going to disappear tomorrow. It's a slow, gradual process. Think of it more like diversification. Countries want more options in their financial toolkit, not just one single wrench. It's about creating balance, not a total teardown.
So, what's the motivation here? Why the big push? Well, it really boils down to a few key things. First, financial independence. A lot of countries are tired of U.S. economic policy changes sending shockwaves through their own economies. It's also just smart risk management. You know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And ultimately, it's about sovereignty, about having more control over your own economic path and building a global system that has a few backup plans. So if countries are shopping around for other options, what's on the shelf? Who are the main contenders that could actually step onto the global stage and share the spotlight with the dollar?
All right, let's take a look. First up, you've got the euro. It's already number 2, backed by the huge combined power of the EU nations. The big catch? Getting 20 different countries to agree on anything quickly is, well, you can imagine. Then there's the Chinese yuan. It's a growing powerhouse for sure, but that lack of transparency and heavy state control makes a lot of people nervous. And finally, you have the wild card, digital currencies. They're innovative, they're new, but they're still facing massive hurdles with volatility, trust, and the whole regulation thing.
But hold on. Despite all this talk, the dollar has some deeply entrenched strengths that make it incredibly hard to replace. Let's dig into why it's so tough to knock this titan off its pedestal.
To really get the scale of this, just look at where the world's central banks keep their savings. A whopping 60% of all global foreign reserves are held in US dollars. The euro, in second place, is way back at just 20%. That one statistic tells you so much about the immense trust the world still places in this one currency.
And if you thought that number was big, get ready for this one. Nearly 90%, that's 90%, of all global trade transactions involve the US dollar on one side of the deal. Think about that for a second. A company in Japan buying oil from Brazil? They're probably not using yen or reais. They're using dollars. It's just the air that global business breathes.
And the reason why, the secret sauce, is a concept called liquidity. The best way to think about it is this. The market for US dollars is like a massive, deep ocean. You can sail a giant cargo ship of money in and out without making any waves. No other currency offers that same depth and stability. It's just convenient.
But really, at the end of the day, it all comes down to one simple word: trust. When things get scary in the world, a crisis hits, a conflict breaks out, where does all the money run to hide? It flocks to the US dollar. It is seen as the ultimate safe haven backed by the world's biggest economy and a stable rule of law. That psychological power is incredibly hard to replicate. Okay, so where does all this leave us? You've got this super dominant dollar on one side and this very real push for alternatives on the other. What does the future actually look like?
I think this analogy just nails it perfectly. The goal here isn't to shut down the main highway, the dollar. It's more like building new roads, new regional routes, to ease the traffic. The idea is to create a more flexible and resilient system, not to cause a global traffic jam.
So the most likely outcome here isn't some dramatic dollar collapse. It's the rise of what experts call a multipolar financial world. A world where, yes, the dollar is still a huge player, but it's sharing the stage with a strong euro, a more international yuan, and maybe even some new digital players. It's a shift from total dominance to more a balance of power.
And that leaves us with the final big question. In a world with all these new financial highways being built, where are they all going to lead? Will they create a more stable, connected global economy, or a more fragmented, complicated one? The truth is, the roads are being built as we speak.